has gone through a lot of pain. Maybe some of you will be stunned, and I want you to be ready. Some of you will probably say, oh my gosh, how could anybody go through that? Maybe your life is perfect. Maybe like me. I grew up in a church setting. I grew up as a pastor's kid. Even though I grew up in Sin City in Olongapo, my life was clean. I was a clean person, and I never knew there were people who were living around me who were so broken. And so this morning, allow the story of Eli to give you some perspective. And if you were in pain today, allow yourself to say, God, I didn't realize there were more people who are in pain deeper than my pain. Would you welcome Eli?
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Gomez. I'm 24 years old. I was born and raised in a Christian home and attended church regularly. Things happened in my life that caused drifting. A normal day in my childhood involved seeing both my parents physically, emotionally, and mentally abuse each other. The first memory I have of being molested was around the age of 2. I was left home alone, and the neighbor from downstairs came and took me to her house. While I was at her house, her daughter sexually molested me. Because I witnessed these things before, I thought this was normal, so I was not afraid of it. The next day, my dad came for me. Eventually, after some time, my mom came back. My dad and her began to argue. Glass cups and plates were being thrown against the wall. I hid behind the couch, holding my ears, screaming and crying. I peeked over and saw her digging her nails in her face, dragging them down from his forehead to his chin. She then left after. My dad sat on the couch with his face bleeding and crying uncontrollably. My parents separated. My dad and I moved in with my grandma. I thought things were going to be better. I was talked down to, not treated equally, and maybe even a little hated because I have white skin and happen to look exactly like my mother. To my grandma, there was no way I was my dad's daughter. My dad got involved in some cartel stuff in Mexico and began doing all kinds of drugs. His main one was cocaine. I remember overhearing a conversation between my grandma and my dad one night. She told him, "You need to get your life together. Their mother abandoned them, and now you too." That really woke my dad up, or so I thought. He started working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. My dad and my mom got divorced when I was 3 years old. Comments would be dropped here and there from my grandma and my dad about how my mom doesn't love me, my mom left me, and she'd rather be with other men than with me. My heart would break and I would cry uncontrollably, and she would tell me to shut up, and why was I crying for? During this time, there was a custody battle between my mom and dad. After incidents, we ended up in my mom's care. Her new husband was living there as well. I wanted to go back with my dad. My mom told me we couldn't and that we lived with her now. The back and forth happened with my parents a lot. Hotel to hotel, couch to couch, I was introduced to prostitution while in my mother's care. I woke up to an incident with her and a client in a sexual activity. She gave me strawberry milk in a bottle and told me to go to sleep. My dad ended up having us in his care again within the custody battles. My mom showed up to my grandma's house with her cousin and tried to take my baby brother away from my grandma. My grandma said no while holding my brother and called my dad to tell him to hurry home because they were trying to take him. My mom's cousin ended up trying to snatch him from my grandma's arms, and they were pulling back and forth like a game of tug-of-war. My dad came running in his work clothes, and him and my mom began to argue, and he tried to reach for my brother. My mom's cousin pushed my grandma with so much force and took my brother. My grandma fell on top of me and my sister, hitting the wall and falling to the floor. My mom's new husband came running and started physically assaulting my dad. My mom and her husband kept hitting my dad, and her husband pulled out keys and began stabbing him in the back of the head. My siblings and me were crying for my dad, begging them to stop. I thought he was dead. My grandma came out screaming, and my mom, her husband, and her cousin tried to run away. The police arrived and arrested them all. The ambulance came and took my dad. When he came back from the hospital, he showed me his x-rays, he showed me his wounds and his stitches. He also told me that he forgave my mom and those other people, and he didn't press charges. I think this was the first time I was shown what forgiveness and compassion was. My dad gained full custody of all three of us. My dad would still allow her to visit us even though it wasn't allowed, but those visits were once every 5 years, if that. I resented my mom because of this. My dad's sister and her husband would take care of us, would take us every other weekend to spend time and take us places. It was fun. But those fun times were also dark times for me. Behind everything, I was being molested and perverted by my aunt's husband. He exposed my siblings and I to pornography. We would watch videos together and he would ask me uncomfortable questions. He eventually molested me and instructed me to do things with him. I was very uncomfortable, confused, and trying to remove myself mentally. This went on for a while. At the age of 10, I was talking to grown men on the party line. I would lie and say that I was 16. I began having sexual activities with grown men at the age of 10. At the age of 13, the molestation stopped with my uncle. My dad remarried when I was 14. She was abusive towards my siblings and I. She would tell my dad to beat us, and she would molest us as well. I grew resentment towards my dad. At the age of 15, I found myself stuck in an abusive relationship. He would beat me and rape me nearly every day. He would cheat on me with multiple girls and men. He would force me to do drugs with him and drink alcohol, and if I ever denied, he would beat me until I gave in. At the age of 16, I tracked down my mom, who was living in Tijuana, Mexico. The same time I was escaping my abusive boyfriend, my dad got into an argument with his wife about me and my siblings. I told my dad to calm down because he was yelling. He punched me in the face. We began fist fighting each other until his wife pulled him off and my siblings pulled me off. I called my mom and told her what had happened and that I wanted to go live with her. My mom came the next day and I left with her to get away from the abuse. My dad told me that if I left, to never come back. In Tijuana, I found a church. In that church, I met a guy I really liked. He was 24 years old in a recovery home. We talked more and more, and eventually we started dating. He moved in with me and my mom. It wasn't long before I got pregnant. We told my mom, and she was gonna send me away to a juvenile facility, and she kicked him out. My aunt was murdered on February 27, 2016 by her ex-boyfriend and 3 other people. That ride home, my mom rubbed my stomach and said that this baby is a blessing. My mom and I slept in a car for weeks. I saw her shut down and lose God. In April of 2016, she called the police on the father of my child for a crime he committed in 2014. They arrested him and he is currently doing life in prison for murder. As hurt and as distraught as I was, I still went to church and tried my best to uplift her and send her messages about God. Each time I did, she would bash me on my past and my current situation and said she didn't want anything to do with God. She broke me. I didn't want anything to do with God. October 29, 2016, I gave birth to my son Josiah, who you all know as Jojo. A single mom at the age of 17, 2-time high school dropout, and no income. My dad's mom took me in. I was diagnosed with severe postpartum depression and PTSD. I treated my baby so horrible and even hated him. With this ongoing struggle, it made me hate God more. At the age of 18 in late July of 2017, my grandma kicked me and my 10-month-old baby out. The money I received from the welfare was not enough for us with our bills and expenses. I began to sell myself to men for money in order to provide for my son. Why not? My body has been an object for so long, I might as well use it. Every night or every other night, I would have sex with someone for about 150 to 200 pesos. In American dollars, that comes out to $8.45. I attempted church again and was quickly shut down by a pastor's wife who told me God's grace would run out on my life. Being discouraged, I left the church life once again. I called my mom and asked to live with her so I could get a job and I'd pay her rent. She said yes. I packed our things and went to live with her in National City. I got hired at a Walmart. I met a guy there who would sing to me any chance he got. I asked him out on a date to the movies, and he said yes. My mom kicked me out 2 months after we started dating. I knew me and my son would have to go back to Tijuana, Mexico, and I was prepared to live that life again. He called his sister and told her about my situation and how he didn't want to let me and my child go. I thought this guy was doing too much. I knew she would say no. She and her husband opened their house and accepted us. I've never in my life known someone who would do something like that for a stranger. I was so confused yet so grateful for what she and her husband did. She told me that when they bought their home, it was God's home, and anyone in need was welcome. After some time of living there, I met some friends who were fun and developed bad habits. I fell under the influence of alcohol and clubbing. I slept with other men besides my partner and began smoking marijuana and was surrounded by pills and cocaine. This brought a huge pain in my relationship. After 2 years of living at his sister's house, we moved out. I got an apartment and was looking forward to not covering up my addictions anymore. One night, I was so intoxicated that I lost consciousness. My so-called friends gave me away to a guy and let him take me. Next thing I remember, he was at my house. I was passed out drunk and woke up to banging on my door. It was my partner. I looked around and knew something happened to me. I was still drunk and couldn't comprehend that I was just raped. I tried to shove it down and forget about it. 2 days later, I couldn't really deal with the pain anymore. I went to the doctor's office and told them what I had been through. They helped me make a police report, and shortly after, 2 police officers picked me and my son up and took us to the rape center. It was one of the most traumatic things I've ever had to do in my life. The lady that examined me confirmed that I was raped and had severe cuts and abrasions in my private areas. I was in silence on the ride back home, and as soon as we stepped in the house and closed the door, I broke down sobbing and was crying. Why would you let this happen to me, God? I continued to go out and drink with the same people. I got pregnant a few months later, but I kept partying. After I had my second son, I was diagnosed with severe postpartum depression once again. 2 months after having my second son, I went out again. This time, I ran into my rapist, and he tried to physically assault me and shoot me. My so-called friends were on his side and left with him. This was truly a breaking point for me. I stopped partying after this night. For the next few months, I battled severe postpartum depression, regular depression, the feeling of loneliness, suicide, and withdrawals from the alcohol. I almost lost my youngest son due to these struggles. It was scary and an awakening. I need help. I finally got down on my hands and knees and begged God to help me. I asked him to help me change myself. I asked him to help me to be a good mom and a good partner to my partner. I fought for my son and got him back with the help of God. I went to therapy and was put on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications and took a parenting class as well. I told my partner I needed God and I needed to go to church even if he wouldn't go with me. Reluctantly, he said, "Let's go." We went to People's Church and were both broken by the Holy Spirit and did the prayer of salvation. My addiction to alcohol has broken. I surrendered myself and my life to God. I surrendered my relationship to God, and I surrendered my children to God. God is now using my oldest to tell others of God and do the prayer of salvation with other children. My youngest sings, dances, closes his eyes, and raises his arms during worship. My relationship is at a place it has never been before. We finished our premarital sessions and got married in June of this year. I got my high school diploma, and in May of this year, I graduated college as a medical assistant. And I even joined the worship team. I was hurt physically, emotionally, and even hurt relationally. I tried to ignore, run from, hide, not worry about, and accepted my hurt. None of those worked. What worked for me was giving my all to God, cutting off everything in my life that is not of God, repenting, forgiving those who hurt me, finding a good church, surrounding myself with a good support system, and never stop trying every day to be more Christ-like and love others the way He loves them. I would like to sing a song for you all that has truly touched my heart. And as I sing this song, I'd like for you all to meditate on the words with an open heart, an open mind, and just let God do the rest.